The first time she told me not to look at her husband, I was serving coffee. Hands shaking, new uniform still creased from the store. She whispered it like advice, but it was a threat. The problem? I didn't even know who her husband was. And when I found out, I understood the danger wasn't where she thought it was. 3 years ago, I arrived in the United States with one suitcase, $200 and a phone number for a cousin I hadn't seen since childhood. The flight was long, suffocating, the kind where you can't sleep because your mind won't stop calculating. How many days until I run out of money? How many months until I can bring my daughter? How many years until this stops feeling like exile? When the plane landed, I stood in line at customs with my heart hammering so loud I was sure they could hear it. The officer looked at my documents, looked at my face, asked me why I was here. I said family. He stamped my passport without smiling. Welcome to America. The cousin's apartment was in a neighborhood where English was optional and rent was paid in cash. 5 of us shared 2 bedrooms. I slept on a pull-out couch that smelled like cigarettes and someone else's dreams. The walls were thin enough that I could hear every conversation, every argument, every baby crying at 3 in the morning. I didn't complain, I was grateful. But at night, when the apartment finally went quiet, I'd stare at the ceiling and think about my daughter, 7 years old, living with my mother in a house that was falling apart, waiting for me to send money, waiting for me to come back, waiting for me to keep the promise I made when I left. We'll be together soon. I started looking for work the day after I arrived, cleaning houses, washing dishes, babysitting for families who paid under the table and never learned my name. I took anything, everything. I worked doubles, triples, until my feet swelled and my back screamed. I sent every dollar I could spare back home. My mother would text me photos of my daughter, at school, at the park, holding a drawing she made for me. I'd stare at those photos until my eyes burned. Then I'd go back to work. The language was the hardest part. My English was basic, broken, learned from old textbooks and telenovelas with subtitles. People spoke too fast, used words I didn't know, laughed at jokes I didn't understand. I smiled and nodded a lot, pretended I wasn't lost. After 6 months, I could order food without panicking. After a year, I could argue with a landlord. After 2 years, I could dream in English. But I still stumbled over certain words, still felt my accent thicken when I was nervous, and I was always nervous. Then, one afternoon, I saw a flyer at the laundromat. Domestic help wanted. Good pay. References required. I didn't have references. I had 3 different jobs, 2 bus routes, and a growing sense that I was running in place. But I called anyway. The woman on the phone had a clipped, professional voice. She asked if I had experience. I said yes. She asked if I was legal. I said yes, even though my visa situation was complicated in ways I didn't want to explain over the phone. She said they'd call me back. They did. 2 days later. Interview scheduled for the following Monday at an agency downtown. The agency office was small, sterile, the kind of place that makes you sit on plastic chairs and fill out forms in triplicate. The woman behind the desk was middle-aged, tired, efficient. She looked at my paperwork, asked a few questions, then leaned back and said, "I have something. It's a good family, very good. But they're particular. You'll need to follow the rules." I nodded. I was good at following rules. She slid a paper across the desk. The Hartford residence, full-time, live out, competitive salary. I stared at the number. It was more than I'd made in 3 months of triple shifts. I looked up. "What's the catch?" She smiled. "No catch. Just do your job and don't cause problems. I signed. The Hartford house was in a neighborhood I'd only seen from the bus. Wide streets, tall trees, gates that opened automatically, houses that looked like museums. I stood at the entrance holding my bag, staring at the iron gate with an H worked into the design. I pressed the intercom. A woman's voice answered, crackling through the speaker. "Yes, I'm here for the job." The gate buzzed open. I walked up a driveway that curved like a question mark. The house was enormous. White stone, black shutters, windows that reflected the sky. I felt small standing in front of it. The door opened before I could knock. She was tall, blonde, perfectly put together in that way that takes hours but looks effortless. White cashmere sweater, jeans that probably cost more than my rent, bare feet with a pedicure so fresh I could still smell the polish. She looked me up and down, not smiling. "You must be the new girl." "Yes, ma'am." "Mrs. Hartford," she corrected. "Not ma'am." "Mrs. Hartford." I nodded. She stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the house was even more overwhelming than the outside. Marble floors, high ceilings, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a palace. Everything was white or cream or pale gray, spotless. She walked ahead of me, heels clicking, and I followed, trying not to touch anything. She showed me around quickly, pointing at rooms without really looking at them. Living room, dining room, kitchen, guest bath. You'll clean all of this. Twice a week, deep clean, daily maintenance. Laundry on Mondays and Thursdays. Grocery runs when I ask. Serving when we have guests. I took mental notes, nodding along. She stopped in the hallway, turned to face me. "There are rules." I waited. First, don't touch anything you don't need to touch. Second, don't go into rooms that are locked. Third, and this is important, she leaned closer, don't get too familiar. I frowned. What does that mean? It means know your place. You work here. That's it. I nodded again, slower this time. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good. One more thing. My husband. Mr. Hartford. He's very busy. Very important. You'll see him around, but you don't need to talk to him. Don't bother him. Don't. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Don't look at him too much. Understood? I blinked. I'm sorry? She sighed, like I was making her repeat something obvious. Just stay professional. Keep your eyes on your work, not on him. I felt my face heat up. I wasn't sure if I was embarrassed or angry. I nodded. Understood. She smiled again. Perfect. You start tomorrow. 6 a.m. Don't be late. And with that, she walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway, wondering what I'd just agreed to. That night, I lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling again. My cousin asked how the interview went. I said fine. She asked what the family was like. I said rich. She laughed. All the rich ones are crazy. I didn't answer. I was thinking about Mrs. Hartford's warning. Don't look at him too much. It sounded like jealousy dressed up as professionalism. I'd worked for jealous women before. Women who watched you like a hawk, convinced you were after their husbands even when you could barely stand to be in the same room. It was exhausting, but I needed the money, so I'd deal with it. I set my alarm for 4:30, closed my eyes, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, I'd meet the husband, the one I wasn't supposed to look at. The first morning, I arrived at 5:55. Early, but not too early. The gate was already open. I walked up the driveway, the air still cool, the neighborhood silent except for a dog barking somewhere far away. I knocked. Mrs. Hartford opened the door in a robe, hair wrapped in a towel, face bare. She looked different without makeup. Younger, tired. "You're here." She said it like an accusation. I nodded. She stepped aside. "Kitchen's that way. Start with the breakfast setup. Coffee, fruit, toast. He likes his coffee black, 2 sugars." I walked into the kitchen, a massive space with marble countertops, stainless steel appliances, and a window overlooking the pool. I found the coffee maker, the mugs, the sugar. I worked quietly, carefully, trying not to make mistakes. At 6:30, I heard footsteps, heavy, measured. I kept my eyes on the coffee pot. The footsteps stopped. "Good morning." The voice was deep, calm. I turned. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with graying hair at the temples and a face that looked kind in a way that surprised me. He wore a suit, even though it was barely dawn. Dark blue, crisp white shirt, no tie yet. He smiled. "You must be the new hire." "Yes, sir. He waved a hand. "I know who you are. The agency sent your file. Welcome." He poured himself a cup of coffee, added sugar without measuring, took a sip. "Perfect. Thank you." I nodded, unsure what to say. He leaned against the counter, still smiling. "You're from South America." I said it carefully, not offering more. He nodded. "My father was an immigrant, came here with nothing, built everything from scratch. So I get it, the courage it takes." I looked at him, surprised. Most people didn't talk like that. Most people didn't see immigrants as courageous. They saw us as desperate, which we were. But it was nice to hear the other word. Before I could respond, Mrs. Hartford appeared. "Honey." Her voice was sharp, bright, fake. "You're up early." He turned to her. "I have a meeting at 8. She walked over, placed a hand on his arm. "You don't need to chat with the help, darling. You'll be late." He glanced at me, then back at her. I was just being polite. She smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "Of course, but she has work to do. Don't you?" She looked at me. I nodded. "Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Hartford." She corrected again. I swallowed. "Mrs. Hartford." She turned back to her husband, steering him toward the door. I stayed in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter, heart pounding for reasons I didn't fully understand. That was the first time I realized this wasn't about me, it was about her and whatever was broken between them. The days blurred together after that. I arrived early, worked late, kept my head down. Mrs. Hartford watched me constantly. If I spent too long in a room, she'd appear, asking what I was doing. If I smiled at Mr. Hartford when he said good morning, she'd pull me aside later and remind me of the rules. If I did anything that she could twist into suspicion, she did. I started to feel like I was walking through a minefield. One wrong step and everything would explode. But I needed the job. So I stayed quiet. I worked hard. I avoided eye contact with Mr. Hartford as much as possible, even though he was never anything but polite. One afternoon, I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard them arguing. Their bedroom door was cracked open. I should have walked away, but I didn't. "You're paranoid," Mr. Hartford said, his voice tired. "She's just doing her job." Mrs. Hartford's voice was shrill. "I see the way you look at her." "What way? I barely speak to her." "Exactly. You're avoiding her because you're guilty." He sighed, long and heavy. "I'm avoiding her because you lose your mind every time I say hello. That's not normal. I'm protecting our marriage." "From what?" "A woman folding towels." She didn't answer. I heard something slam. A drawer, maybe. Then footsteps. I moved quickly, grabbing the laundry basket and disappearing into another room before either of them saw me. My hands were shaking. not from fear, from anger. I didn't ask to be part of their dysfunction. I didn't ask to be the scapegoat for whatever was rotting between them. But I was, and there was nothing I could do about it. Mrs. Hartford started inventing problems. She'd leave things out of place, then accuse me of moving them. She'd complain that rooms weren't clean enough, even when they were spotless. She'd call me at odd hours, demanding I come in early or stay late, just to prove she could. One morning, she pulled me into the living room. "Sit." I sat. She stood over me, arms crossed. "I'm missing a bracelet." My stomach dropped. "I don't know anything about that." She narrowed her eyes. "It was in my jewelry box yesterday. Now it's gone. You were the only one in my room. I wasn't in your room. The door was locked. I don't have a key." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face. I wanted to scream, to tell her I'd never stolen anything in my life, that I didn't need her ugly bracelet, that I had more dignity than she'd ever understand. But I didn't. I just sat there, silent, while she accused me of being a thief. Mr. Hartford found the bracelet 2 days later. It had fallen behind the dresser. Mrs. Hartford didn't apologize. She just said, "Well, be more careful next time," like I'd been the one who lost it. I thought about quitting. Every day I thought about it. But every time I opened my phone and saw a photo of my daughter, I remembered why I couldn't. This job paid more than anything else I could find. It was my ticket to bringing her here, so I swallowed my pride. I endured the accusations, the glares, the constant surveillance. I told myself it was temporary, just a little longer, just until I saved enough, just until I could breathe again. But it kept getting worse. If you've ever worked for someone who's convinced you're a threat, you know the feeling. Every move is analyzed, every word is dissected. You start second-guessing everything. The way you stand, the way you speak, the way you exist. It's exhausting, soul-crushing. I stopped smiling, stopped making small talk. I became a ghost in that house, moving through rooms without leaving a trace. And still, it wasn't enough, because the problem was never me. It was her, and there was no fixing that. Maybe you're thinking, why didn't you just leave? And I get it. From the outside, it seems simple. But when you're an immigrant, when you're undocumented or on a complicated visa, when you're sending money home to a child who's counting on you, leaving isn't simple. It's terrifying. Because what if the next job is worse? What if there is no next job? What if you end up back where you started, broke and desperate, with nothing to show for the sacrifices you've made? So you stay, you endure, you hope things will get better, even when you know they won't. And that's where I was, stuck, hoping, enduring. Until the day Mrs. Hartford went too far. If this story sounds familiar, drop the word survive in the comments. And if you want to know what happened next, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were laundry days, and I was in the basement sorting darks from lights when Mrs. Hartford came down. She never came to the basement. It was my space, the one place in the house where I could work without her breathing down my neck. But there she was, standing at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed, face tight with anger. "We need to talk." I set down the shirt I was folding. "Okay." She took a step closer. "I don't think this is working out." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. This whole situation, you being here, it's uncomfortable." I stared at her. "I haven't done anything wrong." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's the problem. You don't even see it." I frowned. See what? The way you act around him. The way you look at him. I don't look at him. I barely talk to him. Exactly, she snapped. It's too deliberate, too careful, like you're hiding something. I felt my jaw tighten. I'm not hiding anything. I'm doing my job. She shook her head. I want you gone by the end of the day. The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried to find something to say. Mrs. Hartford, please, I need this job. I have a daughter. She held up a hand. I don't care. This is my house, my marriage, and I won't have you in it anymore. She turned and walked up the stairs, leaving me standing there surrounded by dirty laundry and shattered plans. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there, numb, trying to figure out what to do. I pulled out my phone and called the agency. The same tired woman answered. They're letting me go. I said it flatly, no emotion. She sighed. Did you do something? No. She paused. Then there's nothing I can do. They're the client. If they want you gone, you're gone. But they're lying. They're saying I was inappropriate. That's defamation. It's their word against yours, and honey, their word weighs more. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling the walls close in. No job, no references, no way to explain this to the next employer without sounding defensive. I was finished. I packed my things slowly, methodically. The uniform I'd worn for 3 months, the apron with my name stitched on the pocket, the little notebook where I kept track of tasks. I left it all on the kitchen counter, folded neatly, like that would somehow matter. Mrs. Hartford was nowhere to be seen. I let myself out through the side door, walked down the driveway, and didn't look back. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. I stared out the window, watching the big houses turn into small apartments, the clean streets turn into cracked sidewalks. By the time I got back to the apartment, it was dark. My cousin asked what happened. I said I got fired. She didn't ask why. She just handed me a beer and said, "There'll be another one." But I wasn't sure, because this wasn't just about losing a job. It was about losing hope. I'd been so close to saving enough, so close to bringing my daughter here, and now it was gone. All because a woman couldn't handle her own insecurity. That night, I called my mother. I told her what happened. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Maybe it's a sign. Maybe you should come home." I thought about it, about going back, about giving up on this whole impossible dream. But then I heard my daughter's voice in the background. "Is that Mama? Can I talk to her?" And I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. I told my mother I'd call her back. Hung up and lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling for the 100th time. I didn't sleep. I just replayed everything in my mind, trying to figure out where I went wrong. And the truth was, I didn't go wrong. I was just in the wrong place, with the wrong people, at the wrong time. A week passed. I applied to every job I could find, restaurants, hotels, retail stores, nothing. Either they wanted experience I didn't have, or they didn't want to deal with my visa complications. I was running out of money. Rent was due in 5 days. I had $23 in my bank account. I started to panic. Real, deep, suffocating panic. The kind that wakes you up at 4 a.m. with your heart racing and your mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. I thought about calling my cousin's friend who worked at a factory. The pay was bad, the hours were brutal, but it was something. I was about to dial when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hello? Is this?" The voice paused, checking something. The woman who worked at the Hartford residence. My stomach twisted. Yes. This is David Hartford. I froze. Mr. Hartford. Yes, I just found out what my wife did. I'm calling to apologize. I didn't know what to say. He continued. She told me you quit, that you found another job. I just spoke to the agency and they told me the truth. She fired you, made up a story about inappropriate behavior. That didn't happen, did it? No, sir, it didn't. I thought so. He sighed. Look, I know this is unusual, but I'd like to offer you your job back. My throat tightened. With all due respect, sir, I don't think your wife would allow that. She won't have a choice. I'm hiring you directly, not through the agency. You'll work for me, not her. I'll handle the contract, the salary, everything. You'll be protected. I blinked. Why would you do that? Because what she did was wrong. And because I'm tired of letting her destroy people just because she's unhappy. I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to say no, to walk away from that house and never look back. But the other part, the part that was desperate and broke and terrified, knew I couldn't afford to say no. How much? I asked. He named a number. It was higher than before, significantly higher. There was a pause. So, do we have a deal? I closed my eyes. Yes. Good. Come back Monday. I'll have everything ready. And... He hesitated. I'm sorry, for all of it. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process what just happened. I was going back to the house, back to the woman who hated me. But this time, I had protection. This time, I had power. Or at least I thought I did. Monday morning, I arrived at the Hartford house with a new contract in my bag. Mr. Hartford met me at the door. He handed me a folder. Everything's in there. Salary, benefits, terms. You report to me now, not her. If there's any issue, you come to me first. I nodded. Does she know? He smiled, but it was grim. She will. I walked into the kitchen, set my bag down and started making coffee. 10 minutes later, Mrs. Hartford appeared. She stopped when she saw me. Her face went white, then red. What are you doing here? Working. She turned to her husband, who just walked in. David. What is this? This is me hiring someone competent to do a job. You fired her. I rehired her. Under my name. She's not your employee anymore. She's mine. Mrs. Hartford's mouth opened and closed. You can't do that. I just did. She looked at me, eyes blazing. You did this. You manipulated him. I didn't say anything. Mr. Hartford stepped between us. Enough. If you have a problem, take it up with me, not her. Mrs. Hartford stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked out. I heard a door slam upstairs. Mr. Hartford looked at me. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I met his eyes. I've dealt with worse. He nodded. I believe you. The next few weeks were tense. Mrs. Hartford barely spoke to me. When she did, it was cold, clipped, venomous. She moved through the house like a ghost, drinking more, sleeping less, watching everything with those sharp, suspicious eyes. But she didn't fire me. She couldn't. And that ate at her. I could see it. I kept my head down, did my work, and tried to ignore the weight of her hatred pressing down on the house like a storm cloud that wouldn't break. Mr. Hartford, for his part, kept his distance, professional, polite, nothing more. He'd nod when I served him coffee, thank me when I cleaned his office, but he never lingered, never gave her ammunition. I appreciated that, because the last thing I needed was to give her a real reason to destroy me. But storms don't wait for permission. And Mrs. Hartford was done playing games. One morning, I arrived to find immigration officers waiting at the gate. My stomach dropped. I knew immediately. She'd called them, reported me. Anonymously, of course. But I knew. The officers were polite but firm. "We need to see your documents." I showed them everything I had. My visa, my work permit, the contract Mr. Hartford had given me. They asked questions. I answered honestly. They asked more. I answered again. It felt like an interrogation. Like I was guilty just for existing. After an hour, one of them stepped aside to make a call. The other stayed with me, silent, watching. I stood there, hands shaking, trying not to cry. If they took me in, I was done, deported, separated from my daughter. Everything I'd worked for, gone. Then the officer came back. "You're clear, for now. Make sure your paperwork stays updated." I nodded. They left. I stood at the gate, legs weak, heart pounding. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But I didn't. I walked into the house, set down my bag, and started cleaning. Because what else was I supposed to do? Mr. Hartford found out that afternoon. He came home early, face tight with anger. He called me into his office. "Close the door." I did. He leaned against his desk. "I just got a call from my lawyer. Immigration showed up here this morning." "Yes, sir." He looked at me. "Did they hurt you? Scare you?" I shook my head. "I'm fine." He exhaled. This was her. I know it was. I didn't confirm or deny. He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm handling it. I'm getting you a lawyer. Proper documentation. Whatever you need. You shouldn't have to deal with this." I looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" He met my eyes. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I'm tired of watching her destroy people." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." He nodded back. "Just don't let her win." "I won't." I said it with more confidence than I felt, but I meant it. I was done being afraid. That's when everything shifted. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about standing my ground, about refusing to be erased. And whether Mrs. Hartford liked it or not, I wasn't going anywhere. But if you think that was the worst of it, you're wrong. Because the real storm, it was just beginning. Stay with me. The breaking point is coming, and trust me, you won't see it coming. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Mrs. Hartford stopped pretending after the immigration incident. The Cold War turned hot. She started leaving messes deliberately, spilling coffee on counters, knocking over vases, then calling me to clean it up with this sick little smile on her face. She'd watch me scrub, arms crossed, sipping wine at 10 in the morning. She wanted me to break, to quit, to give her the satisfaction of watching me leave. But I didn't. I cleaned every mess, swallowed every insult, and kept cashing the checks Mr. Hartford signed, because I was building something now, not just a paycheck, a future. The lawyer he'd hired was good, really good. Within a month, my visa situation was sorted, properly, legally. I had documentation I could actually rely on. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. And with that, security came something else, courage. I stopped flinching when Mrs. Hartford entered a room, stopped apologizing for existing. I did my job, took my pay, and went home, simple, clean, professional, and it drove her insane. One evening I was finishing up in the kitchen when she cornered me. "You think you've won, don't you?" I didn't look up from wiping the counter. "I'm just working, Mrs. Hartford." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're a liar, a manipulator. You seduced him, and now you think you own this house." I set down the cloth and turned to face her. "I didn't seduce anyone. I clean your house. That's it." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why is he protecting you?" "Because he's a decent person, something you wouldn't understand." The slap came fast. I didn't see it until my cheek was burning. She stood there, chest heaving, hand still raised like she might do it again. I stared at her. My face was hot, my pulse pounding, but I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just looked at her, and I saw it. The desperation, the fear. She wasn't angry at me, she was terrified. Terrified of losing him, terrified of being alone, terrified that, without him, she was nothing. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I picked up my bag. "I'm done for the day." She grabbed my arm. "We're not finished." "Yes, we are." I pulled away and walked out. My hands were shaking the whole bus ride home. Not from fear, from fury. I'd been hit before, by bosses who thought immigrants didn't have rights, by people who thought I was disposable. But this felt different, this felt personal, and I was done taking it. That night, I called Mr. Hartford. I told him what happened. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I'm filing for divorce." I blinked. "What? I should have done it years ago. This marriage is over, has been for a long time. But I stayed because I felt guilty, because I thought maybe we could fix it, but we can't, and I'm not going to let her hurt anyone else because of it." I didn't know what to say. "Mr. Hartford, you don't have to do that because of me. It's not because of you. It's because of me." I should have had the courage to leave a long time ago, but I didn't, until now. He paused. "I'll make sure you're protected. She won't come near you again." He hung up. I sat on the pull-out couch, phone in hand, trying to process. He was getting divorced. Because of her, not because of me. But she wouldn't see it that way. She'd blame me. And I knew, deep in my gut, that this wasn't over. Not even close. The divorce announcement hit the family like a bomb. Within days, everyone knew. Mrs. Hartford's friends called. Her family called. People I'd never met were suddenly very interested in what was happening at the Hartford house. And of course, they all heard her version. The version where I was the villain, the homewrecker, the gold-digging immigrant who seduced her husband and destroyed her marriage. It didn't matter that none of it was true. The story was too good, too dramatic, too easy to believe. I started getting looks when I left the house, neighbors whispering. A few of Mrs. Hartford's friends even confronted me on the street. One woman, dripping in diamonds and entitlement, stepped right in front of me. "You should be ashamed of yourself." I looked at her. "I'm just trying to get to the bus stop," she sneered. "You destroyed a family. I didn't destroy anything. I clean houses. That's all." She didn't believe me. They never do. Because the truth doesn't matter when people have already decided who the villain is. But Mr. Hartford stood by his word. The divorce moved forward, fast. His lawyers were relentless. Mrs. Hartford tried to fight, tried to take the house, the money, everything. She claimed I'd alienated him, that he was having an affair, that she deserved everything because she'd been a loyal wife. The courts didn't buy it. She got a settlement, a fair one, but not the windfall she'd expected. And definitely not the house. The day she moved out, I wasn't there. Mr. Hartford asked me to take the day off. He said it would be easier for everyone. I agreed. I spent the day at the park, sitting on a bench, watching kids play, trying to wrap my head around everything that had happened. When I came back the next morning, the house was different, quieter, lighter, like a storm had finally passed. Mr. Hartford was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked tired but relieved. "She's gone." I nodded. "How are you?" "Honestly, Better than I've been in years. He handed me a mug. I want you to know this wasn't about you. You were just the catalyst, but it needed to happen. I took the coffee. Thank you for everything. He smiled. Thank you for not quitting. I almost did. I know, I'm glad you didn't. Things settled after that. The house felt different, calmer. I kept working, kept saving, kept planning. 6 months later, I had enough. Enough to bring my daughter here. Enough to rent a small apartment, enough to start fresh. I gave Mr. Hartford my notice. He wasn't surprised. I figured this day would come. He said, "You've been planning this the whole time, haven't you?" I smiled. "Since the day I got here." He nodded. "I respect that. I'll write you a recommendation, the best one you've ever seen." I felt my throat tighten. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. You earned it. You survived her. That's more than most people could do. My last day at the Hartford house, I walked through the rooms one final time. The kitchen where I'd served coffee with shaking hands. The hallway where Mrs. Hartford had cornered me. The basement where she'd fired me. It all felt like a lifetime ago. Mr. Hartford met me at the door. He handed me an envelope, a little extra. "For your daughter." I opened it. It was more than a little. It was enough to cover 3 months of rent. I looked up, eyes burning. "You didn't have to do this. I wanted to." He smiled. "Good luck. You're going to do great things." "I hope so." "You will." I walked down the driveway, bag over my shoulder, feeling lighter than I had in years. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to see. That chapter was over. A new one was beginning. 2 weeks later, my daughter arrived. I picked her up at the airport, and when I saw her walking toward me, small suitcase in hand, eyes wide and searching, I broke. I ran to her, scooped her up, held her so tight she laughed and said, "Mama, I can't breathe. I didn't care. I'd waited 3 years for this moment. 3 years of sacrifice, of surviving, of refusing to give up. And here she was, finally." We took the bus home. She pressed her face against the window, taking in everything, the buildings, the cars, the people. She asked a million questions. I answered every one. When we got to the apartment, tiny and cramped but ours, she looked around and smiled. It's perfect, it wasn't, but it was ours, and that was enough. I think about Mrs. Hartford sometimes, wonder what she's doing, if she's still angry, still blaming me for a marriage that was already dead. I hope she found peace. I really do. Because holding on to that kind of bitterness, it doesn't hurt the people you're angry at, it only hurts you. As for Mr. Hartford, I heard through a mutual contact that he remarried. Someone kind, apparently. Someone who makes him happy. I'm glad. He deserved that. And me? I'm still here, still working, still building. My daughter's in school now. She's learning English faster than I ever did. She makes friends easily, laughs loudly, draws pictures of our apartment and calls it home. And every time I see her smile, I remember why I survived, why I stayed, why I didn't give up. It wasn't for me, it was for her. It was always for her. So, what do you think? Was I wrong to go back? Should I have walked away the first time Mrs. Hartford fired me? Or was fighting for that job, for that future, the right choice? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories about survival, resilience, and refusing to be broken, hit that subscribe button. Because I've got more to tell, and trust me, the next one will shake you just as much as this one did. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.